Good day, everybody. Thrilled to be back with you on Hospitality Talks. Thanks for joining us. There has been a lot of discussion on different platforms, and we are absolutely grateful to have a wonderful panel with us. After a couple of tumultuous years, hospitality and lodging businesses have slowly started to reopen as the industry starts to recover. We might find that the old business models do not fit the new normal. During this process, several considerations must be applied, including the health and safety of guests, staff, and the community, along with local regulations that govern these operations. As I said, we're thrilled to have three fabulous professionals from different parts of the world to share their thoughts regarding what the industry can expect as in regards to business challenges, consumer behavior by exploring industry developments and expectations moving forward. I'm Abid Bhatt, and as always, I'm here with our co-host, Sam-Erik. Sam.
Well, from my side, I like to wish everyone viewing from Asia who are celebrating the Lunar New Year happy Year of the Tiger. It's going to be a great year, and with the Tiger, we are roaring back to better days, I hope. And I'm very glad that you are joining us today live. We have several viewers already here, so thank you very much for joining us. Please write down in the comment. Just say hello where you are viewing from, so we can just recognize that you're with us. Also, since we have some great panel here covering Middle East, Europe, and also from Bali, I think it would be nice if you have any comments or questions, raise them to our panelists. They would really appreciate it. And finally, if it's the first time you are joining us for Hospitality Talks and you like our show, feel free to press the thumbs up button, and YouTube will recognize. And even better if you subscribe to us, so you'll be reminded when next time we go live again. But now, with further ado, so let's start the discussion, and let me bring all the panelists to the screen.
Thank you, Sam. We have joining us today from the Island of Gods, Jamal Hussain. He is general manager of Nusa Beach Hotel and Spa in Bali, a wonderful, wonderful destination that relies very heavily on travel and tourism. He has long-standing hospitality experience in operating in corporate roles, and he currently manages this magnificent, authentically Bali-themed resort in Indonesia. Sam, thank you for being with us. We also have joining us from Middle East, out of Emirates, Stefan Thumigar, who is general manager of Towers Rotana in Dubai, a hotelier with global experience. He is an accomplished leader with proven track record of managing successful properties around the world. In his current role, he is tasked to enhance the property performance. Thanks for being with us, Stefan. And last but not least, Daniel Twerenbold, who is, again, deep international hospitality experience in leadership roles, is joining us from Switzerland today in his current role as regional director for Radisson Hotel Group. He's responsible for creating best-in-class operations to sustain growth and deliver profits for hotels in Switzerland, Italy, Austria, and Southeast Europe. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. Glad to have you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Abid.
So, Sam, let's get right into it. We've got quite a few people that have joined us, and hope we'll have a very vibrant discussion. Daniel, we're going to start with you, if you don't mind. Please share with us what the business recovery has been like throughout this process.
Yes, so thanks a lot. Hello to everybody, and happy that I can join the hospitality talk this afternoon. As you said, I'm based in Switzerland, in Zurich, and I'm looking after our operational hotels in Switzerland, Italy, Austria, and Southeast Europe. So it's a very interesting region because, of course, we have the mature market, Switzerland, Italy, Austria, we have the Czech Republic, and then we also have Romania, Hungary, and all the Southeast Europe countries. So there's a different pace of recovery, a different experience we have in these different markets, And when I look, for example, now what's going on in Switzerland to start with, we had last summer actually a very fast ramp up. Which was very nice to see. It caused problems because suddenly we were facing some challenges with staffing, so we couldn't find enough people to handle all this ramp up. The same in Italy. In Italy, we even opened 2 hotels in September, the Radisson Collection in Milan, and in October the Radisson Collection in Venice. And in Austria, the same, like in Switzerland and Italy, very strong summer, very strong meeting and events recovery in autumn in these 3 countries, basically, and also good business over Christmas, New Year. And as most probably you all experience, we have in the city destinations, in airport destinations, where you have meeting and events business. There we had this recovery in last autumn. We had good business over Christmas, New Year, and then suddenly, with Omicron, the whole recovery collapsed again. On the other hand, everything which is related to leisure, and in my region, we have leisure destinations in the mountains. We have leisure destinations in Croatia. So they outperformed the city destinations. But nevertheless,
Daniel,
yeah.
I beg your pardon. Cross-border travel still continues to be a challenge, Daniel. Are you experiencing that throughout Europe? Because every jurisdiction has different regulations at times. Trying to find out what those regulations are so that you can comply is a big challenge. What have you been finding out from your guests, if you would, please?
Well, the biggest challenge we have is basically the intercontinental travel. Guests from overseas, they're facing huge problems, or they faced huge problems to come to Europe. Basically, within Europe, there was a moment last summer, last autumn, where it got a little bit confusing because every country had other regulations with certificate, with PCR test, all this. But lately it became easier because the European Union accepted basically the COVID certificate from most of the countries. So if you were vaccinated and also had the booster, basically the third vaccination, then travel became not so challenging anymore. So, but what I experienced is that, not because there is this uncertainty and not everybody was aware that actually travel is not so challenging and quite easy. But of course that still hindered a lot of corporates and leisure guests to travel from one country to the other because you were not 100% sure. But out of my experience, I started to travel actually in Europe. Within Europe, it was quite easy to move from one country to the other.
Oh, good. Look, having a cohesive policy makes life a little bit easier, but the industry is still having to learn how to cope with this changing environment. Daniel, please share with us some of the best practices that you might have if the guests that are staying with you happen to be COVID positive, or if they arrive and only then find out that they do have the infection. How are you coping with that? What is the teams on the ground level doing to deal with that situation, please?
So one of the best practice I would like to share is from the Radisson Hotel Group. When the pandemic basically started, very quickly, we contracted a company called SGS, international company, doing certification for hospitality for hospitals, basically, that they helped us to develop processes, how to deal with safety and security, how to deal with the processes to handle this pandemic among our guests and the staff the right way. So very quickly we established procedures for the staff, how to deal with guests who reported that they are actually COVID positive, and also for meeting and events guests, for organizers, we have SOPs. We had the information on our web pages. We talk to our guests, to the organizers, when they booked basically a meeting and event, how to deal with it. So luckily, we had lately not so many COVID guests anymore. As of course, in hotels like at airports, there you have a guest calls down or comes to the reception after they got the positive result. They cannot fly, basically. So then we have very clear standards, that you cannot enter to the room, basically, how to mark the room outside the corridor, that the staff knows that we have a COVID positive guest in this room, but very discreet, not that the other guests basically know that in there is a quarantine guest, basically, how to deliver the food to the room. We are working with, or luckily we have, for example, at the Zurich Airport Hotel, a room service robot. It's called Chiefs from a Robotize company. So that helps a lot, to send Chiefs up who basically serves drinks, serves food to our guests. So there are very clear standards, processes in place, worked together with SGS for all our hotels in Europe.
Well, thank you for that, and we'll come back to use of technology as to what new initiatives have been put in place, and we'll definitely talk about your deployment of robots in your hotels. Daniel, talk to us a little bit about the segmentation shift that you've seen. You were mentioning about leisure destinations performing better, but generally across your portfolio, what segmentations are struggling? What is doing better? Where do you see the most potential, please?
It's a very interesting question, Abid, because we face quite a lot of challenges, because the Radisson Hotel Group, we have a lot of meeting and events hotels, city center hotels, airport hotels, very strong on international meeting business, strong on corporate. And certainly some of these hotels in the city center, because the city had potential also for leisure, turned into, I wouldn't say resort hotels, but very clearly leisure hotels. Booking.com became one of the main distribution channels. 80% leisure guests, very strong weekend guests, not groups, not leisure groups anymore, individual families with quite high average house rate. So there we really faced challenges with the staff, because they were simply not used to serve demanding or different demanding leisure guests versus corporates, one night in, out, a dinner, something from the minibar and go again, with guests who have a lot of questions on the destinations. They want to have a nice dinner, they have time, so the staff needed to be retrained to serve this new kind of guests. To your questions, which segments suffered a lot? I just said it, basically, mainly meeting and events, international business, and then the whole corporate market, because yes, as you know, and as experience, all of you, the travel on business reduced. The smaller meetings started to use, or they're using Teams. They go virtual. They're not meeting all the time in boardrooms, basically. So this is basically the biggest change. But for us as an operation, to retrain our teams from a corporate meeting events hotels to a leisure hotel. That was or is still quite a challenge.
I'm sure because the hotels are almost having to retool themselves to attract a totally different segment from corporate, the true road warrior of possibly a day and a half average stay to longer lengths of stay. Daniel, I'll turn it over to Sam in a bit, but before I do, can you talk a little bit from customer expectations? Anything new that you have noticed that the consumer is looking for? Any experiences that they desire where you've been able to have new initiatives in your hotels?
Mm. What we experience is that you have basically two kind of guests. You have the very cautious guests who try to avoid any contact, with team members, who would like to come in, use the technology which we are offering today, stay and then leave again. And then you have the ones who really would like to interact, because there may be home office, they have not so many meetings or opportunities to travel, so they are very talkative. They want to have the contact with our team members. So I think what is new is that you have this, or you have to offer to the guests and to meet their demand is to give them the choice. So either, using the full technology with online check-in, with the check-in kiosk, automated guest room key cutting, to the room service robot, so that they can enjoy a hotel, that they can enjoy all the services, but they have very little contact to or very little human interaction. And then, of course, you have on the other hand, the well-trained staff who give, especially when we go now to the leisure segment, to give this extra service, to have this yes I can spirit, and fulfill all the interaction needs the guests have. So this is what we experience a lot, that you have basically these two kinds of demands: contactless and very contact seeking.
Yeah, that's almost two polar opposite on the spectrum. That, pardon me, people are looking for contactless, but yet as human beings, we are all about being in touch and socializing. Daniel, let me turn it over to Sam here, and I'll be back with you in a moment. Sam, please.
Yes, thank you. Daniel, I'm interested in the staffing situations in your hotels, in the sense in the industry. I mean, from what I have read, and I also know from colleagues, that there are times where they have to close the hotels, and certain staff left the industry with a little bit of a bitter taste, and now trying to attract them back to the hotel. If they don't have the passion, what encourage them to come back? Can you talk a little bit about the staffing and how to attract talent during this peculiar times that we are living in?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I was quite lucky in the region I'm working at the moment, because most of the countries, they have had great furlough schemes, and so basically we could send the teams on furlough, and we could then take back during ramp up. But of course, as it took quite a while, where we had hotels closed or we had very little occupancies, and team members basically they left. So what I realize, or what we realize, is that we are the second largest international company, a hotel company, over 8,500 hotels, and we always go out, and you can do an international career, and we have so many new openings and all that. But we also realize that a lot of our young talents, or talents in general, this international career is not the main motivator anymore. So we have to find new ways to attract these talents. And what we are working at the moment is that we start, for example, in Switzerland, if I can take this example, with the 4-day week. So you work the same hours, like in a 5-day, but only 4-day, you have the same salary, you just have longer working days, and on the other hand, you have 3 days off in one piece. And this is very attractive, because in what other hotel, other yeah, you don't find that in so many hotels. So this four-day week, that's definitely something which attracts talent. And then, of course, we are doing a lot of leadership training, because today you have to lead, you have to the staff differently, you have to respect, you have to give them career perspectives, you have to talk to them on a regular basis, you have to make sure that they have in their interest career paths which they can follow, and not just internationally, and in 2 years you have to move to I don't know where. So basically you can also make a career in an international chain if you are more city based, so basically has a lot to do with make the work schemes very attractive in terms of work-life balance, the 4-day week, then leadership, how to lead today talents, communicate that very well to the outside world, that the staff basically knows what we are offering, and just comes to my mind what worked very well. We in the city of Zurich, we started the project with you call it Quereinsteiger in German. These are people who basically work in other industries, and they are interested to come and join the hospitality industry, but they don't want to make a full education or an apprentice or whatever. So we offer programs for 6 months together with the École Hôtelière of Lausanne, that they can join in certain hotels. They do their education over 6 months in the kitchen or at the front office, and then they can basically work in the hospitality industry, and they have a very nice diploma from a well-known hotel management school in Switzerland and the world. So these are ways we are trying to basically attract talents and be attractive to people who would like to work for us.
Very good. Okay, very interesting. How has the role of the general manager changed during this period of time? I remember working for certain general managers who always was in the lobby meeting the guests, and then I had general managers I worked for who were just checking the Excel in the office of how bookings were coming in. Is there any changes now? Is the general manager's role changing that in order to be closer to the staff and being one part of that one team and be the team leader? What are the things that you have seen, and what are you inspiring your leaders to do?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, we are hoteliers, we are hosts. We would like, or we should, and we have to basically take care of our guests and our owners and our team members, basically. So what we in the Radisson Hotel Group do a lot, we are using the digitalization a lot, and what we are transforming basically the whole back offices. We are centralizing back offices, name it, HR. So we don't, for example, have HR managers in our hotels anymore. So we have HR hubs. Our head of departments are first the people manager, and only if there are some issues which they cannot solve themselves, then they have a hub they can go to. We have finance transformed, so outsourced. So everything basically in the back office we are trying to outsource, internally outsource, in service centers, and that basically frees up the space for our directors, general managers to be at the front again, to be with the team members, to be hosts, to be with our guests. Like you said, right, I experienced this myself in the company. We had a period where we're so busy with Excel and reports, and so we didn't really have time for our guests. And I think this is very dangerous, because at the end of the day, who brings the revenue and who pays our salaries? That's our guests. So we are using, we are using, the technology, and we are transforming our hotels that basically the back offices are centralized and as good as we can automatized.
Well, I have to say that maybe I'm biased, but I had the pleasure of working for a company where we had the company that was Swiss management, and was very much of a expectations that we are spending a lot of time with the guest. And it was a time, in fact, that we shouldn't be even using emails, but that is a long time ago. But I would say that the being with the guest and also being the host was one of the primary focus and also to also by showing to the example to the staff what it means to be a host. So I have a great admiration for the Swiss style of hospitality, where I have partly grew up in my career. So it's one of those things. But my question then is that you mentioned the organization, how the organization have changed now. Could you talk a little bit more? I'm very curious, because now we have all this technology available, and we don't have all these offices for HR manager and so on. What more has changed? Can you just talk about a little bit, because there will be a lot of people now who are viewing the show that are interested to learn how Radisson is approaching this.
Yeah. Well, basically, if I can say so, I can run basically my region with my mobile phone and a few apps. So we are working with D2O. So that's an application where I have all the revenues, the forecast, the occupancies, for all my hotel. We are working with HotelKit. So that's an Austrian company basically, where all the maintenance issues, housekeeping, room allocation, room status, and all that is communicated, etc., etc. So everything basically is transformed into these applications where the reports are pulled from our how can I say, the technology platform. Because before we worked, like many hotels around the world, with Oracle, with Opera. So we as Radisson Hotel Group, we have built our own technology platform, reservation system, CRM, etc. And there we can actually interface all these third-party applications to this our own platform. And that means, the reports, the communication goes very easy, because all hotels are connected, and you have real-time access to the data, whatever you need to make decisions, to allocate rooms, to communicate with your clients, to communicate with your team members, to see how the revenues are coming in, and the status of each hotel, basically. So what I think the success of our company is that we have built our own platform and can easily interface with third-party applications to our needs.
Well, thank you very much. I think that's very interesting. I mean, we really, as an industry, have come a long way, because it was such a resistance to up the technology in various hotels, because everybody was waiting for the other hotel to do it and test it out, because they didn't want to invest on some system that might be outdated. But I think things have changed quite a bit, and I'm really glad to hear how you are approaching this. So that's all I have from my side, and may I hand it over to Abid?
Thank you, Sam. Daniel, one last question before we bring our next guest in. Can you share some new revenue streams that you are evaluating, things that you are trying to do differently to generate revenue that we might not have explored pre-pandemic area?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting question, and in the discussion we have for this hospitality talk, you asked me the same, and I was thinking a lot. At the end of the day, we are hotels. We have hotel rooms. We have meeting and event rooms. We have retail space. We have parking. Which we're basically renting out, and of course now we are trying to find alternative opportunities, especially for the meeting and event spaces, because some of these rooms, they are not sold for nearly 2 years now, But then you face challenges, with the access, with elevators. Of course, everybody want to have the best room with the nicest view, but this is also the room which we can sell for the few meetings we have. So yes, we are selling and renting out, some of these spaces to retail shops, to some test centers or whatever, and then of course through the technology, I mentioned it before, with the room service robot we are trying to implement, certain services in an exciting new way using technology with this room service. It's exciting. We also can save some manpower because we don't have to refill all the minibars every day because the room service robot basically goes, serves in the room, comes back. It's easier to refill than in certain hotels 300 minibars, things like that. But
Sam, I think Daniel might have frozen, but this is a great opportunity. If it's okay, let's bring forward Jamal. Jamal, thank you for taking the time. I know it's late in the evening for you, but we really appreciate it that you joining us at this time.
Jamal, are you with us?
Like he's frozen as well.
Let's jump over then to Stefan then.
Stefan.
Well,
thank you. For some reason, our connection to Switzerland and Bali is frozen. So at least we are thrilled that you sitting in Dubai is still well and live and moving. So thank you for jumping in earlier. Stefan, tell us, I know a lot of the issues that we talked about, Daniel, that you're probably dealing with them as well. Might be a different way of dealing with them in a different market. But tell us what the business recovery has been for market like Dubai, which is a world-renowned destination. It was booming before pandemic. So share with us what the recovery has been like, please.
I think we can say that we have been very fortunate here in Dubai. And again, to put it into perspective, I think the United Arab Emirates, being divided in different into different emirates, had different approaches. Dubai was definitely very much on the forefront, and I think what was very remarkable is the approach and the consistency the government and the leadership here in Dubai has taken. I mean, just to put it in very brief timeline terms, when COVID hit us here very heavily and everything was closed down, was basically in March, end of March. And for 1 month, we had an extremely strict lockdown where people couldn't go out. It was very strongly enforced. But after 1 month, there was already the first opening where people could go start going to restaurants. And only 3 months after, in July, beginning of July, Dubai sent a message to the international markets. We're open, we're inviting tourism back, our airport is open, and that was the message which was sent out. One of the key messages from that moment on was we're opening up very cautiously, but we are opening up and we stay open. We are learning how to live with COVID and how to deal with COVID and still to drive our business. I think there was a very strategic decision which was made, and obviously it was supported by a huge investment in terms of testing facilities, in the way the government supported rules which were implemented, and more importantly, rules were policed, rules were enforced. They were very clear, they were concise, there was no confusion, and you had to follow, and if you didn't follow, it had its results. So from that point of view, our recovery was a little bit different. So we were open at all times. So it was more a question on the feeder markets, etc., which ones did allow travel, which feeder markets were ready to travel towards us, and as well, obviously, the condition of COVID tests, how many tests you had to do, and the cost of these COVID tests to come here. We're also fortunate enough, obviously, that with Emirates Airlines having a very, very strong carrier, which basically connected in all these markets and was flying in all destinations, even though there was no guests really coming. Like I give an example of Australia, where definitely there was nothing happening. It was just more a repatriation sort of a scenario. But Emirates Airlines did keep this network open, and has definitely sent a very, very strong message into the market. So what
Stefan,
this has led...
sorry, sorry to interrupt. You were talking about the feeder markets. Obviously, during Lunar New Year, Chinese outbound traffic used to be huge. Have you seen an influx this week when we are celebrating Lunar New Year?
Sadly, no. I think for us, China is still closed, so there is nothing happening in terms of, again, from a destination market, restrictions in people leaving and going. So we're not seeing from the Asian markets. We don't see as much. We don't see much business at all. As I said, Asia is only opening up as we speak. But there is sufficient other markets, because our feeder markets were really worldwide. And this is the point where I think the advantage of the destination come. We were open, and whichever market opened up and could travel, did travel. And it was also, I guess, from a consumer's point of view, for leisure. I'm sitting in Europe. It's not a situation anymore where you can say, okay, where do I want to go? It's a question, well, where can I go? And then the second question is, where do I feel safe to go? So, and Dubai obviously being perceived, or the Emirates being perceived as a very safe destination, solid health system, solid systems in place, and having this reputation, did definitely help us with the service recovery. Obviously, this we all backed up. This were all obviously backed up as well. Similarly, what Daniel was saying is we had the certification processes. We spend a lot of time educating ourselves, establishing the safety procedures, making sure that we know how to deal with it. And this was all about, was how do we deal with COVID and to understand it. And I personally see since the outbreak, I see us learning to deal with it and finding our ways around it. And so the step was really then having these solid systems in place, which we could communicate to the guests. And I do remember very much the conversations in the beginning of the crisis where we talked about, well, we need to give the clients the confidence to travel. And I found it very interesting that actually that once people could get out of lockdowns and people had the ability to travel, it wasn't really a question anymore. It was really much, it's like, I need to get out of here. And I do remember, sitting the first time in a plane, it's like, I remember when I was a child, the first time in a plane, I took a selfie and said, wow, look, I'm flying again. I think it's this enthusiasm and as well, the fact that travel has become part of our life. I think that's something absolutely. Which is going to be part of it. So for us being prepared and the airlines to be prepared with these safety programs and for us to provide a safe environment and educating ourselves as well has definitely helped in the whole recovery. And for us, as I said, quarter four last year was a very good quarter. We did better than in 2019 pre-COVID. And interestingly enough as well is what the growth in RevPAR actually came through rate rather than occupancy. So one of the things which we think we did very well here is holding rates rather than dumping rates because markets were limited. So I think everybody did hold on, and that was a positive trend which helped us all.
You're absolutely correct, Stefan. I think globally speaking, a lot of the RevPAR recovery has been through rate. For once, the industry might have learned that dumping the rates doesn't necessarily create demand. So obviously, rates have got better flow through, better recovery from profitability point of view. So you are correct. I've been hearing that globally. Let's change the discussion to new operating plans. Anything new that you can share that you might have implemented? Obviously, all the hotels have talked about sanitation and cleanliness, which in some ways, as one of our guests had said, we've talked so much about it, it almost leads the consumer to believe that we were a dump before and only now we're cleaning. But any other things that you can share that you might have implemented from your daily operations?
There is not, again, I do, I'm on the same page a little bit like Daniel. I think, it's not that we came up with total new revenue streams. I mean, I guess the most radical thing which we changed is the home delivery, having your food being picked up in the restaurant and having it delivered at home, something we would have never thought of before because, hey, we're a hotel, we're restaurants, you come to us, we don't come to you. I think that was... and that for many of us has become a good revenue earner, and especially during the lockdown period. And then people got used to it. So, it's great. I can sit at home and watch, watch my TV and have the food of my preferred restaurant. So there's a diversification as well, a change in behavior of our guests and of our clients. So I think that would be the most remarkable change as such, except obviously the ongoing PCR testing, where we're providing the service nowadays to have your PCR testing done in your rooms and so forth, which is more not a revenue stream, but a service we had to add on in this challenging situation. But overall, I don't feel much has changed. Obviously, technology in our part of the world, even though we're technology very advanced, we haven't changed that dramatically.
Fair enough.
And
well,
I always had, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
And, I always, irrespective in what crisis we're in and what the circumstances is, I think I always say the same. We need to go back to basics. We're in hospitality. We're caring for people and we're providing a fantastic experience. And this is what we're here for. It has been very challenging and difficult, many different circumstances and factors to take in. But I think we never need to lose sight of that. And as long as the guest gets what he's looking for and we can exceed his expectations, we're spot on and we're on track for a good future.
Well said. Stefan, I hope our industry never gets to a point where we're relying on PCR testing as incremental revenue, because we'll have far bigger problems globally. So I'm glad that's just a service. But somebody might jot it down that might be a new revenue stream, but hopefully that'll never happen. I'll turn it over to Sam in a bit. Talk to us a little bit about the sales effort. How has the business acquisition and sales efforts evolved during this time period?
Look, I think for us, everything was really driven of what's happening in the feeder markets. So for us, it's really which market opens, which market closes, what sort of restrictions were in place. What, as I said earlier on, is Dubai was very consistent in this approach and has the systems in place. I mean, Dubai, we're doing, in the United Arab Emirates, we do somewhere around 330,000 tests a day. So the facility set up, when you arrive at the airport, tests are done for between your arrival and your customs control, and within 4 to 6 hours you have your test. So we were a very stable side of the business. The question was really what is happening on the other end of the market. So opening up, closing. So it was really keeping a tab on, seeing what happens where, continue trying to diversify, being present, having your tacticals, having contacts with your partner, that when the market opens up, when the opportunities arises, that you're there, that you're present, and that you have the right messaging ready. As everybody, I think, the thing we always hate as hoteliers is business has gone short. It's very short lead times. That has definitely accelerated. I mean, we have shortened the lead times to a week and a half, even for international travel. So this has been another challenge, which obviously then has pushed automatic business into OTAs and these platforms. But as a key message, I think the most important message was we're flexible in our cancellation policies. Let's forget all these big stories about cancellation fees we're charging. We're accommodating, we're open. And more importantly as well is we're supporting if something goes wrong. So being, as I said, I'm coming to Dubai, I'm stuck, especially in the beginning. So what is happening now? Now, obviously, insurances cover most of these things, but in the early days, it was definitely more challenging. So providing this reassurance. And this messaging, consistent messaging, did help us to optimize on each market which were open or then closed again and then reopened again.
Terrific. Thank you for that, Stefan. Let me turn it over to Sam, and I'll be back with you in a moment. Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Stefan, I'm interested about if you can talk about where your customers are coming from, the source of business during a pandemic where people were restricted to travel, and I understand that Dubai is doing better than ever. So could you talk about where are people coming from these days to enjoy the holiday, or if they're coming for business?
Look, I think I can't really say now from how many source markets the main business comes from, but it's the source markets which we had before. As I said, Asia is pretty much out. So if you want to look at it in terms of sequences, during the initial stages, we all survived a lot on staycations. One of the big advantages of Dubai is normally in summer, that's the big migration. Everybody goes back home for summer holidays and so forth, which obviously didn't happen. So a lot of business, especially like in the beach destinations and so forth, we had what we call the staycations, where people stayed within the United Arab Emirates and stayed in resorts just to get away and have a feeling of vacation. And then the market started slowly opening up. Obviously, Europe is still a very strong feeder market, but the CIS, Russia, has been very consistent because they had very limited travel restrictions in place in terms of quarantines when coming back. So any country which didn't have the quarantine and allow people to come back easily, to go back in their home countries, were basically potential source markets for us. So it started really off locally, then Europe, definitely CIS is a strong part. And then slowly the US came on, and then we had this closure. So it's this yo-yo effect, really. South America started traveling. So it's this on, off. I think the only area which we consistently didn't get any business from was mainly Asia, being China, places like Thailand and so forth, which were closed until recently, or still are.
Okay. How about then, I remember from my days in Dubai, was starting a boom of great restaurant concepts. A lot of the top brands, individual restaurant concept brands, came into Dubai, and also it turned out that also people living in Dubai start to go to these independent restaurants then rather than going into hotels. Has that been a shift on how you see the restaurants being conceptualized now for hotels like yourself to attract the local market and keep the customer beyond the breakfast in the hotel to eat?
Look, I think just to, as you said rightly so, I mean, Dubai has everything. I don't think there is any international restaurant brand which is not represented in Dubai. I think the competition has been definitely very fierce. The hotels had a head start, or still have to some extent a head start, is because through the alcohol licensing, alcohol licenses are not given as easily to standalone outlets. There is a slight shift in this and how it's handled. There is different rules which apply, but in generic is still sort of linked to that sort of a concept. I personally think that all the hotels still are quite strong in food and beverage. For us, it's still a major revenue earner, and I think I can speak for most of our colleagues. So F&B is still strongly alive in our restaurant, but without a doubt, we do position our restaurant more like standalone units where we're not just depending on the in-house guests coming to us and eat. It's as well attracting guests from outside, so from other hotels to us. So I'm basically fitting into the landscape of international standalone restaurants.
Okay. I'm not holding on to this, but I just want to check, how do you see in Dubai, how often would a hotel need to change the concept for restaurants that may not be working. I mean, I know there are some restaurants that are extremely well. There's they've been around since the hotel was open, but now with the heating competition, you have to maybe take a look at it. Well, maybe we have to change the concept. In what kind of interval, or in how many years would you need to take a look at this change if you would need to make one?
Look, I think it's very, very difficult to say, to put a number on this. I'm just using my
just
own
general.
hotel right now. We have our Teatro restaurant, for example, is around since 22 years. I think it's about staying relevant to the market. I think there is some very famous restaurants here. They have been here for a long time, but they have stayed relevant to the market. And I think that's more the dynamics. And I believe that is the key factor to holding on to a restaurant. The thing in Dubai is that there is so much more construction coming on. There is more hotels coming. So it's not that hotels change from one to the other, or it's more like the new brands are coming in a new restaurant, in a new shopping mall, wherever the opportunities arise. And it's then the fight of an existing hotel, of an existing restaurant being successful, staying relevant in the market. So I think we have a very, very fierce fight, competition. We are trying to be very targeted in how we're going after clients. And we're not just focusing on our own hotel guests. We definitely more focus on the market. And being Dubai very spread out, obviously there is a strong market, residential market, which is almost equally important. So it's a like for like. And then obviously some restaurants, especially standalone restaurants, they go up, they're successful for a period of time, and then they're not profitable, and then they close. But the successful, I think they stay relevant as long as they keep in the market.
Yeah, I remember your restaurant very well. It's a great restaurant, so I have to come back again when I visit Dubai again.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Stefan. So over to you, Abid.
Thank you. Stefan, one last question before we try it again with our next guest, but talk about travel regulations or support on a global basis that might have helped the industry, some things that are possibly being more of a hurdle than help. Anything that you have noticed that we can talk about for our viewers and our audience?
Look, I think what this pandemic has shown us is how important consistent messaging is. And I think the biggest confusion or the biggest hurdle is changing restrictions, changing government instructions, changing interpretation of it. I think as a business, as a business or as a traveler, once we know what we're dealing with, we can work around it. We can deal with it. We find solutions. I think the biggest problem I found, and I'm talking to some of my other colleagues in other destinations here in the Middle East, is if there is no consistency in what's happening. So our business is hard enough with all the high payroll, the overheads, etc. we're having. So by having this consistency, from a traveler point of view, exactly the same, right? The biggest fear is what happens when I am overseas and I can't come back. So, for example, my government allows me to leave, and I can come back home without the quarantine. I'm just lying on the beach. Then I hear that if I have to go back now, as of tomorrow, I have to pay back. Otherwise, I have to go 14 days into a quarantine. So these are all the challenges we had.
Yeah.
I think other than that, it has been a learning curve for us all, for every government, rule maker. We have learned. Every day we're smarter than we were yesterday. So as long as we have that approaches, but we have some clarity and a clear roadmap, I think that's the most important thing. And I think that's why the success story here in Dubai, this consistency, which allowed us to ramp up a little bit more structured than maybe in other destinations, and to send a very confident message to the traveler and saying, you will be fine here. We'll look after you.
Terrific. Well, Stefan, thank you for those insights. Please stay with us. We'll have you back. And I hope that we've got Jamal back online. And there he is. Well, Jamal, thank you so much for your time and thanks for joining us. Sorry, we had I thought we had lost you earlier, but I'm thrilled that you're back. Jamal, talk from Bali's perspective. It is a huge tourism destination, very heavily dependent on foreign tourists coming in. Tell us how the destination has coped with COVID and what it looks like relative to recovery, please.
Right. First of all, Bali, as you mentioned, is very heavily dependent on tourism. I think 75% of the economy here is totally linked towards tourism, and as such, with the lack of international tourism right now coming into Bali, it has been devastating. I wished I had a little bit more positive news, like my colleagues Daniel and Stefan. But here in Bali, it is a slightly different story, right? For about 2 years now, since the onset of COVID 19, the borders have been closed. So we haven't had international tourism for close to 2 years, between 18 months and 2 years. And the effect on the economy has been devastating. The domino effect of lack of international tourists is shown in so many different aspects of Bali, from hotels, empty rooms, and that just goes down to money changes, souvenir shops, shopping malls, freestanding spas, sea sports, transportation, buses, etc. So it is a very disheartening situation. It's very challenging, and the effect has been felt, is being felt, and I'm afraid will be felt for a while to come. Bali has just announced, or Indonesia, better said, has just announced that they will open Bali up as of the 4th of February, which is 2 days from now. And the thing is now to watch and see which markets are going to react. Singapore Airlines has just announced that they will fly into Bali as of the 16th of February. Again, it's a wait and see situation to see who comes and how much of them come.
Fantastic. Well, Jamal, you bring up an excellent point. It's not just the hotels, the destination is made up of all these small businesses, and quite candidly, to a great extent, the character of the destination is through small gift shops and independent restaurants and other tour operators. How do you see Bali dealing with that? Because if these small businesses don't survive, it will have changed the feel of Bali for a very long time.
For sure, right? The essence of Bali is very different to, let's say, European markets or the Western markets, including even perhaps the Middle East, etc. Here, it's very much the human touch, the people, that is the attraction, the quaint things you can do, to go to a little hole in the wall and have something to eat or interact with the locals on a very basic level. This is the attraction, the main attraction, and the main profile of Bali. And yes, a prolonged absence of international tourism will have maybe permanent effects here in Bali. Fortunately, though, the world is recovering, in certain parts slower, in certain parts faster, but the world is on a journey of recovery. So let's just hope that Asia kicks in. As Stefan just mentioned just now, Asia is, I think, slower than the other parts of the world in terms of recovery. There is more restrictions here in Asia, and inter travel between countries it's still quite a challenge right now. And the challenges is not just the restrictions on the host country or the restrictions of the guest country, but it's also the availability of flights. Flights have become quite expensive, and the availability of such flights are also limited.
True, very true, because a lot of destinations they rely on airlift to bring people in. Having less flights or less capacity would hinder the recovery, but let's hope, as you mentioned, fortunately, Singapore Airlines is starting to fly back in, and soon thereafter, the other international carriers would follow. Jamal, talk a little bit about the resort environment, Bali specifically, but resorts generally in Asia, as we all know, and you look after one of the most iconic resorts in Bali, sprawling facilities, multiple food and beverage restaurants, great services and facilities throughout. How have you been able to keep the same experience alive, or have you had to change things around?
I think both are true a bit. Certain things remain the same. The levels of hospitality, the warmth of the staff, those things are the same. Those haven't changed. What has changed is, as you correctly said, the typical Balinese resort is, sits on 5 to 10 acres of land, has 5 to 7 restaurants, 3 to 4 swimming pools, huge facilities. Some have tennis courts, squash courts, big spa facilities within the hotel, etc. Obviously, with a declining and diminishing top line due to the fact that international tourism has temporarily disappeared. What is happening right now is that a lot of the hotels have downsized, meaning, if they have 500 rooms, they maybe now operate 200 rooms. They close 3 wings and operate 2. If they have 3 or 4 swimming pools, the main pool is open, the others could be temporarily closed. Out of 5 restaurants, maybe 2 are open. The breakfast restaurant traditionally, and then 1 specialty restaurant. Some of the spas are closed still because of the fact that, with this COVID and the physical distancing not being a spa thingy. So, many of the spas have closed. So that's one source of revenue that is very diminishing. And so the facilities are there, but smaller than previously.
Fair enough. Jamal, thank you for that. Let me hand it over to Sam for a bit, and I'll be right back with you. Sam.
Thank you. Yes, Jamal, the Bali has been always it sparks somehow imagination in everyone when they hear the word Bali, and I think it comes to I think it must be about 100 years ago when a Mexican artist went there and he finally wrote a book called The Island of Bali, I think, if I remember correctly. In fact, I have the book somewhere. But also he was there, and it was his best time of his years, and he did a lot of illustrations and so on. But he left Bali after a while, and then he came back, and he was so disappointed. Was it in 1930s when there were too many tourists in Bali? In his opinion, Bali had changed too much, and I was wondering whether all the difficulty that Bali is going through, and with all these very large resorts that has a lot of pools, a lot of facilities, and maybe there's a change in the customer's requirement for the future, whether Bali and the developers will need to take a fresh look what they're going to build next, whether it's time to go back to the way people imagine Bali being, whether it's smaller and less pools and few restaurants. Just want to get your thoughts about this.
Right. I think nothing much will change in that context, Sam. I think that, the Balinese people are very resilient. Yeah. In 2002, they had the Bali bombings. In 2004, they had the Bali bombings. They've been through quite a lot. They had the SARS previously. Even 9/11 affected this part of the world. But Bali has always bounced back. They're very resilient people. They're very service oriented. That's the beauty about Bali. Sure, they have all the hole in the walls, and they have everything from $5 meals to $500 meals, right? Every hotel chain worth its salt is represented here in Bali. So you've got luxury par excellence, but you also have the little B&Bs, you have the little villas where the family looks after you, etc. So I think in that context, nothing much would actually change. But re-looking at everything would be a definite thing to do, right? Um,
Yeah.
now Bali has the opportunity to think, okay, do we try to uh, up up the ante and say, okay, let's attract more high yielding customers rather than maybe backpackers, and find a better financial balance between the both. Things in that direction. I think I'm sure that technological advances will be something that one has to look at. As everybody knows, payroll is always often the biggest cost factor in a hotel operation. And so everywhere we are looking at efficiency increases, productivity increases, even if comparably the payroll is lower than most parts of the world. One still has to look at it because the payroll expenses are just going to go up, 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 and the average room rate or the yield of a room or the RevPAR of a room is not increasing in the same capacity.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm just thinking in terms of facilities where things have changed. I remember not too long ago, every hotel had to have a business center. Now, if you really think again, now does a resort or hotel need a business center anymore? When people who are traveling there, they can use the mobile device and their own laptop to do all the work. And there are now lots of digital nomads traveling around the world. They're spending 3 to 4 to 5 months a year in one destination. So would that be the kind of attraction, or whether they already have been in Bali, many of them, whether they find the atmosphere so charming to do some work as a consultants for a few months? Is that the thing that might be a attraction for Bali and also other areas in Indonesia?
Yeah, I think so. I think so for sure, Sam. People will be looking at those things. I mean, funny that you mentioned business center. It is still a criteria to have a business center to be a 5-star resort in Bali. So everybody has a business center that nobody uses, right? If I had $100 million and I would have built a hotel, two things I would do. Number one, no more telephones. Why would you need a telephone in a hotel room? I would have some sort of an intercom system where you only needed to call the reception or to call room service, and that's it, right? I mean, you couldn't call anyone from a hotel room because you don't know the number of anyone because they're all in your mobile,
Yeah.
right? So I would just do away with telephones, and then maybe put a London style red box, with a public phone booth in the lobby. And that's that if you wanted to really make a call. Everybody is on their mobile phone. Nobody has received a call in a hotel room for ages, right?
That's right.
Yeah, but things will have to be looked at. I think technology will surely play a part in all this. QR readers for menus are very popular here in Bali now, because people have a little bit of an apprehension about touching menus and stuff like that. So little card on every table, and people use their handphones to click on it, and then they see the menu, and that's what they do. Hotel rooms are also becoming less cluttered now. Spa menus are on QR readers. If they're not on the TV, they're on a QR reader. Room service
Right.
menus are the same. Even the hotel compendium is soon becoming a thing of the past. If you really need to read a compendium, well, then click on your phone or go to the TV and press channel 6,
Right.
and you'll have 25 pages of hotel compendiums. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamal. Yeah, I mean, I think we could have a long discussion because it's my favorite topic of why are hotels still building on facilities that nobody's going to be using because it just happened to be a standard for five-star hotels in certain areas. So I'm glad I'm glad that we were able to have that little bit discussion on it, and hopefully there's also people listening to about this topic. So may I just hand it over to Abid?
Thank you, Sam. Sam, if it's okay, let's bring everybody back in, but I will ask my next question back to Jamal. Jamal, a lot of the mature markets in Europe, US, possibly even in Dubai, there has been a bit of a labor crunch with people that have left the industry. Is Indonesia, but more specifically Bali, is Bali experiencing that, or are you on the other side with having still surplus labor?
Well, Bali is unique again simply because of the fact that 75% of the economy is tourism driven, right? So, unfortunately, or fortunately, all depends on how you want to look at it, people are skilled in tourism and not much more, right? In a highly developed an economy that is highly diversified would allow, for example, a 25-year-old who says, I don't see much in the hospitality industry, so I'll go work in IT, or I'll go work in banking, or I'll go work in, whatever. There's not much of it here in Bali. Bali is quite unique in that sense. So, this particular labor crunch that others talk about, I don't see that happening here. What I see here is huge unemployment and people waiting and praying that the tourism picks up, the hotels get busy, and they get rehired. That's about it. The sad
Well,
part
that's it.
about here,
Please go ahead.
yeah, the sad part here is that entire families are employed by the tourism sector, because tourism here, the hotel industry is, for example, the highest taxpayer, and it's also the biggest employer on the island. So, father could work in one hotel, mother works in another, and maybe the son works in a restaurant, and all three get furloughed at the same time. And that brings along very, very difficult situation.
Yeah, look, this pandemic has created lots of hardships all around the world, but in destinations like Bali, where you mentioned 80% of the GDP is tourism related, families and villages were very heavily dependent on this single industry, and that industry being hurt does not help the cause at all. So, thank you for sharing that. Daniel, if I may ask you the question, any trends that you're saying very quickly, some new market trends that you might have noticed that would help us better prepare for future events? Let's hope that we'll never have to
Yeah.
deal with anything like this ever again. But anything that you're changing that the industry is adjusting to for future?
I have a very bad connection. I don't know. I didn't understand the first part of your question. Can you please repeat?
Any market trends, Daniel?
Maybe somebody else. I don't really understand it. Sorry.
Stefan, would you, if you can hear me, would you like to jump in?
Yep. Well, as I said, market trends. I think earlier what I just said on it is that is definitely we need to become much more dynamic in our responses. And I think what we have learned is if it's now from staffing, is it's now from the way we're financing, the way we deal everything. I think the big learning curve is don't take anything for granted. Everything is possible. I think that's the big takeaway from that angle. So. Each market is obviously dynamics, but is different. But we have a lot of similarities. We're depending on payroll, obviously.
Yeah.
Big trends, outsourcing. But then again, in a situation like we're having now, did outsourcing work? In some areas, it did work. It obviously allowed you to reduce your payroll very quickly. But then the ramp up, you were depending on a third party, which possibly doesn't have the same ethics or the same quality standards in hiring and or the same urgency or financial means to rehire. So I think in terms of market overall trends, it's just this being dynamic, being close to the market, being close to what is happening, and don't take anything for granted and expect the unexpected.
Fair enough.
Daniel,
I don't know if you can.
Now I hear you. Yes, yeah, okay. Market trend.
Just
maybe maybe just to add something what Stefan said, as we are operating a lot of these large meeting and events hotels, so the lead time, of these large events becomes very short. So we have to be extremely fast, in reacting and what is important also, to like Jamal said that, profitability to have, and we can do that, in the part-time of the world I'm working, to further reduce fixed costs, increase the casual labor, to be really flexible, to respond quickly, when you have these large events coming in within sometimes a few days, and before it took the preparation period, was something like 3, 4, 5 months. Now you can have a 200-300 people event within 1 week, and you have to organize, the people and the team members. So this whole agility and flexibility is definitely will stay on our agendas.
Thank you. Jamal, a question for you, and maybe I'll pose this question to our other colleagues as well. Anything, maybe one thing, if you could share that we can do to gain the consumer confidence back from this industry?
Yes, well, I think, the whole safety, security, the communication to our clients. So this remains and will be key. The guests, they have to know that when they choose our hotels, that we are there, we are taking care of them. The processes are there are no risk. We are certified. We have all the necessary steps in place to ensure that they have a safe and healthy stay with us.
Thank you, Daniel. Jamal, your thoughts on this?
Along similar lines, communications, transparency are extremely important. People want to be informed, especially now, and there are many sensitive people. Especially the older generation, and someone talked about this group of people who are a little bit more paranoid about this situation. And if I'm going to try to make a booking in a hotel, I want to be able to see very clearly what their health protocols are, how they are safeguarding me, and how transparent they are. And there's a lot of reassuring the public, reassuring our guests that should something happen, we can take care of it.
Thank you, Jamal. Sam, I know we are approaching the very end of it. Anything from you? I've just got one other question, and then we'll wrap it up, but anything you would like to add? Sam, I believe you're muted.
As usual. Yes, I just want to encourage all the viewers who are with us. We have several viewers here to post any final comments before we close the session. But Abby, please go ahead.
Just 2 seconds worth from all three of you, and Stefan, I'll start with you. Any learnings from this pandemic? One learning that you think we can never forget?
Everything is possible.
Fair enough. Jamal, for yourself?
Health is wealth.
Very well said. I had heard that throughout, but we all abuse our bodies throughout our lives. But very well said. Daniel.
Speed and agility is crucial to survive.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Look, this ends our regular broadcast, but one quick comment. Jamal was very kind enough to allow me to thank him after a very long service and a brilliant career. Jamal has decided that he's going to move on to his next chapter of life to spend time with his family, lower his golf handicap, and go fishing or whatever else he's going to do. So on behalf of the industry, but certainly for myself, Jamal, thank you for all that you have done throughout these years. We'll certainly miss you, but we'll definitely have to keep in touch because obviously you have been a huge contributor in this industry. Also, for our viewers, as Sam had mentioned, that joined us from Asia particularly, but viewers that celebrate the Lunar New Year, Happy New Year to all of you. We really appreciate you being with us. Thank you again for all your feedback. Stay positive and test negative. Sam, over to you.
Well, I'd like to thank again. Great discussion, Daniel, Jamal, Stefan. It has been a lot of great. I have learned a lot from you today, and I'm sure many of our viewers have also. So it has been a great session to learn what's happening in the industry. And I'd like to encourage people who are watching this. If you like this episode, just give us another thumbs up. And if this is the first time you are viewing this, then please subscribe to us. But if you, in your evening jog, like to listen to podcasts, you may want to dial into Hospitality Talks podcast, because this session will be coming out as a podcast also. So with these few words, I just want to say thank you very much, everyone. And we will close the session.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.